Some people say the world is too dangerous, the storms too fierce, and the powers of darkness too strong.
They don't see God's light.
The Scout's first duty is to God, recognizing that He is the one Father of us all.
On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God.
There is no religious side of the Scouting movement. The whole of it is based on God. Our objective is bringing about God's kingdom on earth.
It's not just about setting goals to improve myself. It's about making a difference.
Keep these higher aims in the forefront and don't let yourselves get too absorbed in the steps.
As a scout, I'm doing my duty to God, and that's how I become the person I want to be. We already know the world can be dark and sometimes even stormy, but Jesus Christ is the light of the world. By His light, and with Scouting's help, I'm becoming a beacon. I'm becoming a light in this world too.
We're also grateful to have Rex Tillerson with us tonight. Most of you know Rex, the former National President of the Boy Scouts of America, the former Secretary of State, and the former Chairman of Exxon Mobil, and one great human being. We're going to hear from Rex later tonight, and we're just grateful that he's here. And we welcome all of you. Thank you for being here on a Friday night. We know how busy your schedule is, but we're grateful to be with you here tonight. Now, our invocation tonight will be given by Lyle Knight of Billings, Montana, who is the chair of the board of directors of the Vanguard International Scouting Association. And following the invocation, we will have a special patriotic presentation. Well, we're again grateful to welcome you. We welcome especially our Vanguard members. Thank you for your support during these last 18 months. It's your being part of the charter members and lifetime members and annual members that has allowed us to put on programs like this. And there's some pretty fun things that will support scouting across the world. We're excited in what's happening. And we invite those of you who are not yet Vanguard members to go to vanguardscouting.org and find out more about what it means to be a Vanguard Scout. And you'll see that for a charter membership, which just lasts until the end of the year, or a lifetime membership, there are some nice gifts, a neckerchief and a little book on scouting, Be Prepared, and a bolo tie, and some great things. But most importantly, you're helping to make a difference in Latter-day Saints who are involved in scouting across the world. So thank you for all you do. Tom Brokaw once said, in this country, it's easy to make a living, but it's tough to make a difference. And so thank you for making such a marvelous difference. Now, I'm going to ask Matt McKiff and Neil Robison, who are two of our vice presidents of Vanguard Scouting, to take just a minute and share with you a logo that we have that will guide us through this evening as well as into tomorrow morning, beginning at 8:30 Mountain Time. And so, Neil, if you could put that logo up, and I'm going to just leave it to you and Matt to talk to us a little bit about this. And I may jump in periodically.
Sure, that sounds great. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. We're glad that you're here. And we wanted to share for just a moment something that sort of guided us in preparing the materials and really thinking about how we could add value to what you're already doing with youth. So what we did is we came up with this graphic that you're seeing on the screen right now. And we developed these questions to guide us. And these questions would be asked by you. And we start out a question that you would ask yourself in your personal effort. What can I do to improve what I'm doing for scouting? And we want everybody to sort of ask that question. Now, to support you in your efforts, we've provided some things and some additional questions to ask, all of it surrounding this main focus on bringing these youth unto Christ. So from the personal effort, we would move over to the left side of the screen, and you would ask, how can I bring a community of adults together to inspire our youth and provide them the best scouting experience? So it starts with a personal effort, continues with a community of leaders, and then we continue on with Vanguard Scouting in the top right-hand corner. And we would ask, or you would ask, what can Vanguard Scouting do to help me bring youth unto Christ and enrich their lives with scouting? And then finally, we add a fourth component to this, and that is the Vanguard Religious Awards. We feel that this is an essential and critical part of a scouting experience for those that are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so you would ask, how can I use the Vanguard Scouting Religious Awards to bring youth unto Christ, and in turn to prepare them to reach their potentials as sons and daughters of a kind and loving Heavenly Father? So all of these things come together, all working together: the personal effort, the community of leaders, Vanguard Scouting, and the religious awards, to draw these youth closer to their Savior and do that through a great scouting experience. And what I love is that this applies no matter what your faith is as well. If it's Catholic, if it's Jewish, if it's Islam, whatever it is, all of these things can come together. We happen to focus on Christ at the center, but this can be applied to other faiths as well. And so this is our guiding principle for Little Philmont and beyond on the efforts that we're putting to try and help magnify and amplify your efforts at a local level. Charles?
You know, Neil, Wayne Bishop just reminded me that one of the most important parts of all of this that we do is helping our young men to do their duty to God. Matt, why don't you just, as a focus on what Vanguard can do to help our participants tonight be able to strengthen scouting and strengthen what they're doing in scouting, just take just a moment to talk about what's happening tomorrow morning on our 3 sessions, if you would.
Sounds great. Would love to. As Neil mentioned, that logo represents a lot of what we've been talking about for several months in preparation for this conference. Tomorrow we have several topics planned, and in preparation for that, we took a lot of the feedback from our last conference about what people want to discuss and what they want to learn. And we've prayerfully considered so many things, and that logo represents a lot of it. And we're very excited about tonight and tomorrow to address the personal effort and commitment that we all have, and how to expand that and expand to our community and lead the youth. And Christ being the center of that logo is what we want to do. The logo also represents a circular path where one area leads into another and leads into another, because they're not distinct. They overlap a lot. And that was very intentional to show that the center being Christ and the youth, and then all these facets around it leading into each other in an infinite circle, because we hope that not only with this conference tonight and tomorrow, that we continue to grow and provide these services. You know, the resources that we're going to develop in Vanguard Scouting are going to be available to all of you in the future as we continue to grow. And so this is just the beginning.
Thank you very much, Matt and Neil. It'll be an exciting day tomorrow. Now, I'm reminded, even with an American flag over my shoulder, that we have some from outside the country today. And I know we have Harry Long from the Far East Council, Adelaide, South Australia, with us, and we have others who have joined us. And well, when we talk about duty to country, we talk about duty to whatever country you are allied with. And as we've become and are an international organization, that's important. Now, tonight we focus on one of the most important parts of scouting, the heart of scouting, if you will, and that's duty to God. A scout is reverent, and the role of religion in Vanguard Scouting. We have a wonderful program planned. We hope you enjoy it.
Every vessel is a vanguard, the very first to cross these waves in this weather on this day. And so it is for every young woman and every young man experiencing life in the latter days. They are the first in their family, in their community, and in the world to live their life in these unusual times. So how do they find their way, especially when night falls and storm clouds gather? The symbol of the Vanguard International Scouting Association is a lighthouse, fixed, immovable, constant, reflecting the light of God's love to every Vanguard vessel, to every youth crossing the seas of life. Vanguard's special role is to provide parents and leaders in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with the resources of scouting to help them guide their youth to the shores of a productive and happy life, and to help young people become lights to the world themselves. How does this happen? In the same way, a lighthouse guides each vessel, one by one. With training and support from Vanguard, members of the church discover the innumerable inspired ways that scouting can be used to increase faith in the Savior, strengthen family relationships, serve others, and bless the world. Trained scouting leaders learn how to support youth in their personal growth and support their families in preparing them for missions, college, and marriage. Above all, scouting leaders learn how to support mothers and fathers in their sacred roles, so that the scouting experience not only strengthens individual youth, but the entire family. That has been the experience of a young man who encountered scouting through the Latter-day Saints nearly 40 years ago.
There's two things that I learned most from my father. One, that we always try to help. That we look around and we see who needs help and we offer it. And the second is to never believe that anything is impossible. I grew up in a very faithful home. That was something that was really important to my parents. My grandparents were in the ministry. My grandfather was a pastor. My grandmother runs a church out of her garage. And at a certain point, they were trying to find something for us kids that would keep us out of trouble, but that would support the values that we were learning in our homes. We were in a predominantly black neighborhood, and it wasn't a world that was or is particularly kind to black kids, black boys especially. And scouting was a way for us to do something really great. Scouting provided me so many opportunities to be in nature, to find moments of solitude. And one of the places where I searched, just being out and looking up at the open sky and just asking, is there a God? Who is he if he's there? Like, I wanted to know. I really wanted to know. There was this great opening of the world to me that I found through scouting. But Scouting is so much more than just your local troop. I got to meet people from all over the state, from different states, from all across the country, but who had these sort of core values that I had. And it was really getting to know this broader world of people that was just captivating to me. At this point, I just graduated from high school. By the time my senior year came around, we started having parties Wednesday night. That to me was the beginning of the end. I'm like, how can you have a party on a Wednesday night? Like, clearly school nights are for studying, not for partying. And then I met these guys at National Boy Scout Jamboree who didn't smoke, who didn't drink, who didn't do drugs, who didn't have sex outside of marriage. And I thought, who are you and why are you this way? And so they started telling me why they lived their lives the way that they did. And that's how I came to learn about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There was something about their faith that moved them to action. I wanted to know deeply enough that I would live differently. Scouting was really the key that unlocked this world to me of people who shared so much that was important to me, but differed in ways that were so important that I could learn something from them. There is something about the things that you do in Scouting that create a fertile opportunity for sharing the gospel, for sharing the joy that we have and why it is that we have it. When I started college, I was still seeking. I still had lots of questions. But you know, the other thing about Scouting is the adventure. And when I proposed to my wife, Amy, I said, Amy Claire Bassett, will you go on an epic, eternal adventure with me? And there is something about Scouting that instills in you the confidence to go on adventures. And adventures really are about taking a step into the unknown. Adopting our 7 children was its own adventure, of course. Certainly, as newlyweds, didn't think, yes, 7, that's what we'll do. But we started praying for them by name. As we did, eventually, we thought, oh, okay, well, we'll put our name in, and we'll just take the first step. And if Heavenly Father thinks this is right, then we'll just keep going. And sure enough, we were selected to adopt our children and try to love them the best we can and to help them know that they are a part of our family forever. Just another commitment and sign that we are on this eternal adventure. Scouting is definitely something that we look to help them in their development. We know that it's important for them to see the richness of God's creations. That faith and that light has been passed down. The next adventure really is about finding a way together with them to combat the darkness that's in the world. I owe everything to my family. I think it goes back generations. Hey, we all know that there is something much more important than self. Why is a Scout loyal? Why is a Scout trustworthy? Why is a Scout kind or cheerful or obedient? We are all of these things because they better allow us to fulfill our duty to God.
The good news is, Scouting is alive and well across the world. Members of the church everywhere are discovering that Scouting doesn't compete with the inspired programs of the church, it complements them. That may be a different perspective for some church members. For some, Scouting is about merit badges, advancements, and rigid programs. But that wasn't Baden-Powell's vision. Let us not get too absorbed in the steps, he said. Don't let the technical outweigh the moral. This, then, is the purpose of Vanguard: to help young people receive and follow the light of the world as vanguards in their own life, and in doing so, become lights to others. So come, join us in using Scouting to lead every young vanguard to Him.
Out of hope in the dark, like a ship with no morning. Pull the oar, hold the line, still the way is unclear. 'Cause the rocks and the shoals and the waves are obscuring any side of the land. Is there somebody there? You are the vanguard, leading the way across the sea, unfailing direction. For the lost, you hear their plea. Oh, they may be distant and all alone, but your light is the hope that will bring them home, like beacons you stand guard. Bright is the North Star. You are the vanguard. The way is fierce, the night is dark, but in every soul there is a spark that whispers hope to weary hearts. Now you're the rescuers they need, the first to hear, the first to lead. You're the master's hands and feet. You are the vanguard, leading the way across the sea, unfailing direction. For the lost, you hear their plea. They may be distant and all alone, but your light is the hope that will bring them home, like beacons you stand guard. Bright is the North Star. You are the vanguard. You are the vanguard.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this wonderful presentation. It just touches my heart as I think of all of these young people of the rising generation. They are the vanguard. We're very grateful to David Warner and his team. Many of you know David, who was instrumental and is the producer and writer and director of the Century of Honor back in 2013. He and his team, Paul Wallstad, Kay Rintleysbach, Russ Booth, who wrote this special song just for tonight and for Vanguard, Michael Morris and his family, and also our Vanguard Scouting Angels who made this possible. Thank you for all that you do and for the impact that you've had on this great program and on this great effort in strengthening the rising generation. Now, we now turn to our special speaker tonight. And I'm going to ask Wayne and Chris Perry to introduce a man who really needs no introduction, but he's going to get one anyway. He's our special speaker tonight. So Wayne and Chris, the time is yours. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Charles. And I want to just say I'm so happy to be here tonight, and so happy and thankful to be a part of this wonderful organization. It's my privilege to help introduce our keynote speaker tonight, and I've known Rex Tillerson for many years now. I have seen that he is a consistent beacon of light for the Scouts and for the world. Rex personifies the essence of Scout values. I know he recites them and practices them daily in his life. We've all looked up to his leadership over many years, and we have seen that he has sacrificed his personal time and placed the moral and ethical advancement of the youth of this world as one of his highest priorities, and I've witnessed his caring as well for individuals on a one-to-one basis. When Rex speaks, we listen. His voice rises above the others because we know he speaks wisdom from his heart and from many years of experience in many different venues. Rex is patriotic, he's humble, he's faithful, and the words that he will speak tonight are extremely important for the continued success of our Scout movement, and indeed for our country, and also for our personal lives.
You know, Rex started out just as a civil engineer out of the University of Texas, and then worked all around the world for Exxon. And of course, then rose to be CEO, as Charles mentioned, which is one of the largest corporations in the world. And then he retired from Exxon as the CEO, and one of our national presidents, Bob Gates, who was the former Secretary of Defense and head of the CIA, recommended to President Trump that he appoint Rex to the Secretary of State. So Rex was appointed as the 69th Secretary of State for this country. Rex is an Eagle Scout, and Rex is absolutely, as Christine said, he just bleeds scouting. And Rex's current assignment and as a Scout volunteer is very important. Rex is in charge of the curriculum of the Thomas S. Monson Leadership Excellence Center at the Summit Bechtel Reserve. Now that consists of the Tillerson Center, the Marriott and Yamagata Lodging, and the Tickle Base Camp Training Center. So it's a very important job, and it's a thing that Rex said he was going to do when he ended his public service as Secretary of State. And he is fully engaged again as a member of the board and in charge of this curriculum. So now we have a chance to hear a special message from Rex.
Good evening. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to participate in this fireside chat as part of the Vanguard Division training program. What you're there to discuss and exchange views on is very important to our movement. And therefore, it is really right and correct that we take this time out of our very busy schedules to remind ourselves of the leading edge of our scouting commitment, our duty to God. I thought I'd just share a few brief remarks with you this evening regarding the important element God plays in our scouting movement and in our preparing young people to make ethical, moral decisions. And also hope to reconnect you to the important element that God plays in our founding and the safekeeping of our country and the very freedoms we enjoy. The founder of our scouting movement, Lord Baden-Powell, when asked where religion comes into scouting, replied, and I quote, "It does not come in at all. It is already there. It is a fundamental factor underlying scouting." And I think what Baden-Powell was really conveying to us is religion and God in scouting is like the very air around us. It has always been there. But it is the oxygen that is necessary to sustain the scouting movement. And without the oxygen of God in scouting, scouting dies. And indeed, that's why our oath begins with our duty to God, and the final point of the Scout Law, which guides us in putting into action the oath, is a scout is reverent. So the whole of the commitment we make as scouters, and we teach our scouts to undertake, begins and ends with God. The recognition of God as the ruling and leading power in the universe, and the grateful acknowledgement of his favors and blessings are necessary to the best type of citizenship, and they're necessary to developing ourselves and other young people into humble servant leaders. The BSA Handbook for Boys, published in 1911, says, and I quote, no boy can grow into the best kind of citizenship without recognizing his obligation to God," end quote. These views were shared by the founders of our nation, and the authors of our Constitution, and are reflected in their debates, creating our form of government. The last point of the Scout Law actions our duty to God. The Scout is reverent towards God. The Scout book says he is faithful in his or her religious duties and respects the convictions of others in the matter of customs and religion. One of the great enriching experiences of scouting is living out that direction of the Scout Law, to respect the conviction of others in the matters of customs and religion. It allows all members of Scouting to appreciate the fulfillment of duty to God through the practices of religions that are not their own. Judaism's relationship with Jehovah, Islam's relationship to Allah, Christianity's relationship to God and His Son, Jesus Christ, and all other spiritual teachings of others who practice their religion in recognition of that higher power in the universe. In my own scouting experience as a youth and as an adult, I have enjoyed wise counsel from leaders of all the great religions. It has enhanced and strengthened my own Christian walk. As a youth, I was fortunate to earn the God and Country Award before I earned my Eagle. I began working with my minister at First Presbyterian Church in Stillwater, Oklahoma, as soon as I was eligible. It involved almost 14 months of study and service to the church, and it helped me understand what I was promising every troop meeting when we would recite the oath, committing on my honor to do my best to do my duty to God. And only after I began to have that 11 and 12-year-old understanding of duty to God did I begin to understand why, absent fulfilling my duty to God, it was impossible for me to fulfill my duty to country, others, or myself. All of the great religions teach humble servant leadership. Judaism teaches the greater the man, the more humble he is expected to be. In Jewish tradition, humility is among the greatest of the virtues, and its opposite, pride, among the worst of its vices. The essence of being a Muslim is being humble. The word Muslim itself means to submit oneself in ultimate humbleness to Allah. And the Christian faith is guided by many references in the New Testament to living an humble life. Many of you know the verse I have carried with me most of my adult life from 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that He may lift you up in due time. I've also said on many occasions that it's funny how God talks to you, if you're listening. I'm not really talking about those be still and know that I am God moments, although I do on many occasions take time in quiet meditation to listen, and after opening my eyes, I always feel better about whatever's troubling me. But I must confess, I've never had one of those aha moments. Rather, in my experience, God generally uses someone else to deliver the message. Albert Einstein is to have said once, when the solution is simple, God is answering. And indeed, one of those moments when God spoke to me or had someone speak to me was at a Duty to God breakfast at the annual meeting in 2010, just as I was assuming the position of President of the Boy Scouts. Some of you may have heard me tell this story before, but maybe not everyone's heard me tell it. When I agreed to become President of the Boy Scouts on their centennial anniversary in 2010, a number of other CEOs and friends of mine asked me why I was giving all this time to the BSA, that I was running the largest oil company in the world, traveling all the time, and had a lot of other things I could be doing. Well, our speaker at the breakfast that morning was Will Willimon, retired bishop of the Methodist Church and an Eagle Scout. And Will related the story of the first time he went on a camp out with his troop. He was in a patrol of young tenderfeet And the Scoutmaster had told them to be ready for their first camp out, that they needed to have something simple for dinner the first night, because they would leave after school to drive out to where they were going to camp, have to pitch their tents, and it would get dark quickly. So keep it simple. And he said, bring a can of stew, a can of beans, and so that you can have something quick. So Will's Tenderfoot Patrol gathered after school. They went out to where they were camping. They pitched their tents. They built their campfire. And then they put their cans of beans and weenies and stew in the fire. And within a matter of moments, cans of stew and beans and weenie were exploding everywhere. The Scoutmaster rushed over to these young boys horrified, and of course looking for cuts and scrapes and injuries. He pulled his neckerchief off from around his neck, and he's wiping the beans and weenies off of their little 11-year-old faces. And he says, boys, you have to open the cans before you put them in the fire. And this young scout, as the Scoutmaster was wiping his face off, looked up at him and said, boy, being Scoutmaster's a really hard job. They must pay you a lot to do this. The Scoutmaster looked down at him and he said, son, they can't pay you enough to do this. And no one would volunteer to do this. Son, I was put here to do this. Well, that simple phrase, that I was put here to do this, gave me the answer that I needed to serve as president of the Boy Scouts of America. Now, you might not think that's all that profound of a story, but it really resonated with me. And I think the fact that the message was delivered through a Scoutmaster, a volunteer who gives a lot of their time, taught me a lot about servant leadership. You know, our unit leaders are really at the heart of delivering this program and setting the example, being the role models, and keeping God in reverence in our program as well. So the Vanguards are very important in our movement right now, because our unit leaders are so important. And it's important that all of us take time and take the effort to select good leaders, select good role models, ensure we give them good training, but then give them our support and our encouragement, because they really are at the forefront of our program. And so I want to close these brief remarks with the Scoutmaster prayer. And many of you may have read this prayer and be familiar with it. The Scoutmaster prayer is attributed to Scoutmaster J.F. Buck Bashirs, who was a Scoutmaster for over half a century in Colorado. And he penned the poem during World War II, when he received news that one of his scouts in the war had gone missing in action. And they were having their troop Christmas party the next day, and he wasn't sure what to do or what to say, and he stayed up all night just distraught. But he picked up his pen and he wrote this poem. A little boy came knocking at my scout room door, an awfully little fellow, just 12, no more. His eyes danced as he watched my gang at rowdy play. I would like to be a scout, he said. I'm just 12, yesterday. In the weeks to come, he found his place, a trim young scout he made. The test he passed with eagerness, a thorough job, sure paid. The oaths, the laws, the knots and flag were taken to his heart. A better man he was sure to be, though he had just begun to start. By the candle-lighted darkness, I watched his round face beam, as the oath and law he pledged to keep, just like a prayer it seemed. The years to come were happy ones, as we followed the trail that greater men had laid for us, far up where eagles sail. I watched him grow from boy to man. The days were far too few to try to teach the important things that scouting said were true. I didn't know so long ago our nation he would defend. I only saw a job to do, a helping hand to lend. Now he's flying higher still with silver wings up there. I pray to God the job I did was better than just fair. He thanked me once for what I did so many years ago. It was not his thanks that paid me, because he did not know that greater thanks he'd given me 1,000 times before. by his dancing eyes and smiling face. Could one ask for more? There are other boys a-knocking. I must invite them in. Please, God, give me strength to make them better men. The better men and women our nation desperately needs, now more than ever. And our better men and women who will be servant, humble leaders, guided by their duty to God and their reverence as a scout. I want to close with one of my favorite quotes from the great 19th century spiritual mystic Ramakrishna. And he says, "The winds of grace are blowing all the time. You have only to raise your sail." Thank you again for allowing me to share these brief thoughts with you. I wish you all the best in your ongoing discussions and sessions, and thank you for everything you do for Scouting. God bless all of you. God bless the Boy Scouts of America.
Thank you, Rex, for that wonderful, wonderful message. And thank you for being put here, in the words of Mordecai to Esther, for such a time as this. We're grateful for your strength. I think Rex's message, though, is to all of us, and that is we've all been put here for an amazing message for such a time as this. I think there's never been a greater time when Scouting is needed now as we move out of this pandemic, as we seek to reclaim many of those who have looked to other areas during this pandemic. It's an opportunity for us to reach out and strengthen the rising generation. So Rex, thank you very much for sharing that with us. And we have a Vanguard Scouting campership that we have identified, a young scouter in Texas that will be able to go to scout camp because of this campership, and it will be done in your name. So thank you very much. Now, we're grateful again for all that have been here tonight. We're grateful for each of you for taking the time with being here tonight. We have individuals from across the world. I mentioned already Harry Long, but we also have Alejandro Yonto from Argentina. And we are excited for this great work and for the opportunity to continue to touch the lives of the rising generation, and particularly Latter-day Saints scouts, scouters, and scouting families across the world. We invite you to join us tomorrow at 8:30 Mountain Time. The Zoom link will be the same. We'll have a wonderful, wonderful program. Matt and Neil already talked a little bit about it. The video presentations that you saw this evening will be available on vanguardscouting.org by Monday, so that you'll be able to share them with your friends through social media and otherwise. We hope you'll use them. We have a number of individuals tonight, friends of other faiths, and those will be made available through Bob Wedig and through others. You're more than welcome to utilize these to help in your work to bring others to understand their duty to God. Now, our benediction tonight will be by Jake Nickel, a member of the Vanguard Scouting Board of Directors from Park City, Utah, and will be adjourned until 8:30 a.m. tomorrow.